All right, I give in. I will tell you today why I think it is important why Trent Baalke isn't the one making the picks for the Jaguars. Y'all won. I'll tell you all about it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, you heard what you said. It is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, all of you tune in every single day, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you watch and listen to your podcast. Make sure you check in every single day so you do not miss an episode. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us each and every day. Let's run it down. I'll tell you what today's show is about. Reasons to feel positive. That's where we're going to end up. So that's why I need you to hang in here, because y'all, even if you don't believe me, you just go, okay, what on earth is he going to say that's going to make us feel good about us being 2-7? Not quite what I'm going to make you feel good about, but if you hang around, you'll see. Right in the middle, why would top coaches come here if Trent Baalke is still the GM? And I think when you ponder that question, that's going to let you know when we get into the middle and the meat of this, you'll start to understand and feel where I'm headed. Because I'm going to start at the top, which is the process of elimination. What do I mean by process of elimination? Glad you asked. I'm going to tell you what I mean. Do I mean we need to figure out who's responsible for this team being the way it is? No, I think we all agree that everybody is complicit in that. Okay, if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, because we've seen it now for 4 years of this administration. We've actually seen it for most of our lifetime, or at least half of our lifetime, depending on how old you are. But that's not quite what I'm talking about when I say process of elimination. Does it mean who needs to be on the roster? No, it doesn't mean that either. It's a process of elimination of you understanding that, Shah Khan, that everything that you do or don't do has a consequence or a connotation. Which one do you want? All right. You want to fire Doug Peterson and press Taylor into the moon. Let's just assume for today that that's what they're thinking. And that would be the nightmare of all fans. I think the nightmare of all fans would be to fire Trent Baalke and to promote Ethan Waugh and then just let Doug and Press keep going on with what they want to do. Y'all don't want that either. But folks really don't want the coaches just to be fired, Baalke still left in charge, because here's what's going to happen. He has to pick the coach. Everybody is focused on those draft picks, right? The draft picks are important, but Trent has picked players that can play. I'll get to that in segment 3. He's picked players that can play. He hasn't picked enough of them that can play together, collectively, consistently. The thing he's messed up on, in my opinion, are things that we can't see. Things that we only hear about. The mood in the facility. Football isn't necessarily one of those military style sports where you have to rule with, I wouldn't necessarily call it fear, but to have everybody on edge all the time like that. You know what I'm saying? And the mood around there isn't, from the people I talk to, it ain't like it used to be. It's not that much different from when Urban was there, other than the fact that the head coach is nicer. When they got rid of Urban Meyer, they thought they were getting rid of a lot of stuff, and they didn't get rid of those things. Okay? That's one thing. Those draft picks, if we got to fall on that because we have a common, I wouldn't say but a common theme as to who we don't want, then if it's draft picks, then so be it. Sure. He screwed up the draft. He hasn't built good teams. He's done some cherry picking. If you want to sit there and talk about how guys perform, But for some reason, I keep coming back to 2-7. And I'm not going to sit here and blame it all on Doug and Press. Which is why for the last 2 years, I have been telling y'all to stop screaming from the rafters, blaming everything on Press Taylor. Does he have a part in it? Sure. Yeah, he has a part in it. Does Doug have a part in it? Sure. Do some of the players have a part in it? Sure, including Trevor. But here's what Trent Baalke has done. He picked Doug Peterson, who picked Press Taylor. And then from what I understand, Trent Baalke had a big part in picking Ryan Nielsen. And had a big part in firing the defensive coaching staff that actually took the team to 9 wins 2 years in a row. That was him too. So if we got to fall on the draft picks, if that's where you're at, then fine. That's where we'll be. We'll just do like a lot of people do. We'll fall in line because we have a common thing that we need to address, even though we have differences in other places, right? But this one thing, that's what we're going to stand on. So if your reason for getting rid of Trent Baalke is draft picks, so be it. Mine is a bigger issue. Mine is the fact that he is the captain of a ship and he has not navigated this ship safely. He's running to icebergs at every single turn. He hasn't been a leader. If there's dissension, if there's division, if coaches don't want to fire coaches, but he wants them to fire coaches, and they're getting mad at guys who are inactive and not playing over guys who are playing, I think all of that is just as important as picking players. I think you can have a real good organization and be poor in the GM department and win 9 games a year. I saw the Patriots do it a couple of times after Tom Brady left. Mac Jones took them to the playoffs. People forget about that. And this is when Bill Belichick was running a skeleton crew of a coaching staff, and he was running the front office trying to do everything after Brady left. And it didn't work. All right? But it didn't work in a different way. It wasn't because they forgot how to coach. It's just that because it was poor personnel decisions. I've seen mistakes at the quarterback position not even matter. You don't think so? Look no further than San Francisco. Yeah. Look no further than San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't necessarily a mistake, but Trey Lance definitely was, and something like that would set a normal franchise back. But here's the thing, they got real good coaching. And outside of those top-heavy decisions, they got real good personnel people, too, to overcome it because they draft and develop, and they know their identity. The Jaguars don't know their identity. So if you don't know your identity, any coach that comes in here would be basically cleaning up Trent Baalke's mess, not Doug Peterson's mess. Anyone that comes in here, if Baalke's still the GM, will have to align with Trent Baalke and have to align with his ideology and have to align with his thought process. And I don't think there are too many guys out there that want a job bad enough that they'll do that. And everybody's talking about Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson said he didn't even want to go to Washington last year because he wasn't comfortable with the way everything went down. And now Washington is 7-2 with Dan Quinn as their coach. Ben Johnson's still a hot coordinator, though. But you see, if he can do that and say that about a brand new regime, or feel that way, or infer that some sort of way, what do you think he's sitting here thinking about coming here and being with Trent Baalke? My question is, and I'm going to ask this and we'll carry this over, would top coaches come here? And that's why Shad needs to really take a hard look at this. If you want a good coaching candidate, if you keep that GM, you know what you're doing, you are probably cutting 70% of the possible really good candidates off the list. And you're going to have competition for everybody. It's not just the draft picks, but if that's the way y'all want to fall on it, go ahead. It's not just Press Taylor. It's not just Doug Peterson. It's the whole thing, which is why I keep crying loud for them to just whack all of it and take your chances on somebody new who can set the proper course and navigate this franchise out of this stuck place where they are. We'll talk about that and more and answer the question, would top coaches come here if Trent Baalke's still here? We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by Ultimate Football GM. It is back, man. The game, I'm telling you, the game that I enjoyed, I played this on a plane, man, all the way from Las Vegas, all the way back to Jacksonville. That's right, 4.5 hours. And I put my team in salary cap hell while I was trying to get my Trent Baalke on. Remember, Ultimate Pro Football GM, they are back and added new amazing game mode I got to tell you about. Now, you can lead your team to glory. It has a new head coach career mode. So on top of building your dynasty or drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring coaches, now you can get to call offensive plays during the game as well. If you already had it installed, be sure to do an update so you can try out the new mode. If you don't have it yet, download it right now. It's a must-have for all football fans. I love it, and I know you will too. If you're a Jaguar fan, you're already in team builder mode, so you need to do it. Ultimate Football GM is completely free. It has no ads, 100% playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want. Here's a special offer to Locked On fans. Use the promo code Locked On NFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure to get it, as the perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. And the show is sponsored also by our friends over at Prize Picks. All right. The number is 2 to 6, between 2 and 6 player projections, and it's just you against the Prize Pick computer. What you're doing is you're not going against the millions of people trying to win those billions of dollars or their share of it. You're just going against the system. It's just you and them one-on-one. And if you can win up to 100 times your money if you get between 2 and 6 correctly. That's right. All you got to do is download the app and use Locked On NFL. It's the number one daily fantasy sports game in America. And if you use the code and download Locked On NFL, you're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll say it again. $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you use the code Locked On NFL. $50 instantly after you play, not when you play your first $5 lineup by using the code Locked On NFL. Prize Picks. Run your game. Segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Jaguars. Top coaches. We were talking about Trent Baalke, the process of elimination, and why I agree with a lot of people that want to move on from him. It is not for the sole reason that a lot of people voice when they're talking about Trent Baalke. It's almost like when you mention a coach, it's almost like when you mention a coach and you don't bring up the fact that that coach, as a play caller, has more duties to do when they become the head coach. And I'm like, nah, man, there's more to it. There's also more to a GM than just drafting good players. Look at the good players on the Dallas Cowboys roster. The Dallas Cowboys have all pros, guys making big money. They have guys at every position that anyone would want, maybe except running back this year, but you get my point. They got DBs, they got linebackers, they got defensive ends, edge rushers, they got wide receivers that if you do top 5, top 10 lists, they put people on those lists, quarterback included, young tight end, all of that stuff. But yet still they're a hot, stinking mess because they have a team building issue. And there is no what we call, it's not jiving between management, coaches, players. That all has to be a chain. That's why everybody loves Detroit right now, because it seems like they're all on the same page. And people think you can just go get Ben Johnson and bring Ben Johnson here and allow Ben Johnson to just come here and automatically what you see Ben Johnson doing in Detroit, that is somehow going to happen here. And that is not the case. That is not how this all works. It just doesn't. Yeah, so let me pivot here a little bit because, first of all, the Jaguars are going to have competition. They're going to have competition. Let's just assume that they keep Trent Baalke and they get rid of Doug Peterson, right? They're going to have competition. There are other teams that might be just as equipped or better, but their hosts and their media guys, they fully understand exactly what I'm talking about here. I think ours do too. But my man Lauren Cox for Locked On Bears, y'all seen him here on Locked On Jaguars before. He's very good. Locked On NFL also. Lauren points it out that this whole play caller thing, that's cool and all. And the reason why I want to play this is because of something that Ben Johnson actually said. But first of all, if he's your choice as a coach, listen to this.
It's important to remember here for Ben Johnson, like, yes, no doubting, he's doing a great job with the Detroit Lions offense. Like, they are great. He's a great offensive coordinator. But not all great offensive coordinators are great head coaches. Head coaches have to do a lot of different things beyond just offensive coordinating. And I feel like we saw this with Matt Nagy, and we even saw this with Mark Trestman. Like, not that Ben Johnson is going to be either of those two guys, but we all thought Matt Nagy was going to come from Kansas City and be a great offensive coordinator and do with Mitch Trubisky what he was doing with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. That was the whole point. But we found that a really great offensive coordinator into a head coach role has more than just offensive coordinating at his disposal. And sometimes that can become a problem here. Maybe Ben Johnson can handle the head coaching duties and be a great head coach. We'll see, but we don't know that. Just like we don't know with any coach you could hire. So to sit here and say Ben Johnson could be the savior of the franchise and the Bears have to do whatever it takes to make sure you get this guy because he's a can't-miss head coach candidate, there's no such thing as a can't-miss head coach.
Right. Washington sure didn't feel too badly that they didn't go out and just say, okay, come on, Dan Quinn, come on down. You're a defensive coach. You're not a play caller. You might call defensive plays, but you went and got Cliff Kingsbury to coach Jaden Daniels. Look at them. And they are for real team. They're not for play. They're making moves to go out and get Marshawn Lattimore at the trade deadline and all of that stuff. So it worked for them. Don't get so caught up in getting that one dude. You just have to be concerned whether the entire field is concerned about the Jaguars as a whole, their direction, and if Trent Baalke is still the GM, are they just coming up in here trying to dress up his mess? And I think when you talk about Detroit, look at what Detroit has. Management, coach, quarterback, all in lockstep. That has not been the case here in Jacksonville probably since 2017. So you have to wonder if Shot is answering or asking himself the question. Because what this does is this, when I said process of elimination, I think everybody thought, okay, eliminate the things that might be the problem and whatever is left, that's what you're left with. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you have to look at the prospects and you have to also look at what the perception is league-wise. If there's competition, why would a coach that chose not to go to Washington that had a top 3 pick and new ownership come to Jacksonville with the same management? It just does not make a whole lot of sense to me. So you need to probably be bracing yourself for that part of the discussion more than anything. All right. I'm going to give you some reason to be positive. I haven't done it too much yet. Why would somebody want to take this job, even if Baalke is here? I'll tell you all about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel, man. Look, they are America's #1 sportsbook. So that's a good enough reason for you right there to want to be involved with FanDuel because they're #1. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets or $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, pushing third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Reasons to be positive. We've talked about the process of elimination, of choosing how far to go in these cuts or these changes that we expect to come in the offseason, because I don't expect the Jaguars are going to finish strong enough for otherwise to happen. If they do, then I'll revisit it. What top coaches come here and why having Baalke in place would be a detriment. So I'm going to tell you, if Baalke does stay in place, why some coaches would come here. I don't know if you'll consider them top candidates, but why they would come here. And they might get somebody by default. Here's why. Because there's only 32 NFL jobs. That's why. It's the pinnacle of these guys' profession. If you happen to be a minority coach, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, those opportunities have not come at the pace and the frequency that minority coaches want. They'll never turn down a job. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's bad optics to even do that. You get an opportunity. That's why people say, well, why is this guy taking this job, whether it's pro or college? What do you mean, why is he taking the job? You know, if he goes to the cookout, there's going to be 12 people there saying, why didn't you take that job? You just have to go in and try to do the best you can whenever you get one of those opportunities. The other thing is, even if you're not a minority, there are guys that probably want a second bite of that apple. You don't think people like Steve Spagnuolo and Matt Nagy and all of these guys that are now coordinating these teams? I've heard people talk about Cliff Kingsbury. They were laughing at Cliff Kingsbury 2 years ago. But now that Kingsbury is back in his quote-unquote play caller mode in Washington, guess what everybody's saying? Whoop, there he is. That's the guy you want to pick. You just saw 2 years ago what Cliff Kingsbury was capable of as a head coach. Now you want him back. So there's always going to be somebody, especially a retread, or a guy that did not get a chance in the first place. Like Rich Bisaccia, the special teams coach for Green Bay. You know, the Raiders probably should have kept him, right? As much as I love Antonio Pierce, they should have kept him. I'm sure there's a TV coach out there somewhere. Rex Ryan says he wants to get back in coaching. There's always somebody that'll take a job. But I'm going to be positive about the Jaguars. Why would people take this job? This is with or without Trent Baalke, preferably without Trent Baalke. I'm going to name them. Here's the 6 reasons. Well, here's the 7 reasons. Because you have an owner who's willing to spend, willing to be a delegator of authority, and he's willing to be patient through losing and give you an opportunity to not only win, but an opportunity to lose and come back from losing. It's proven that's what he's done. That's why we're sitting there wondering if he's going to get rid of people now. That's Shad Khan. That's a reason. As much as we criticize him for his style, or folks sitting there talking about whether he cares or not, he's a dream for a real good coach, because he'll stay out of the way. He'll let you do your thing. He'll support you. Even when things don't go the way you want them to go, he'll give you just more support, and he's patient, probably to a fault. But if you're the person in that job, that's not a bad thing. So that works in his favor. A lot of new stuff too associated with him, because everyone knows that there's a new stadium. And so there's going to be renewed enthusiasm over the next 2 or 3 years. That's a reason. Another reason to take the job, before I get to the people I'm on the name, is this. Because things have been so bad around here. This is not another 9-8 team, I don't believe. So anybody who came in after 3 consecutive 9-8 years would be expected, just like Doug Peterson was expected and Trent Baalke was expected this year, that you take the next step. Somebody comes in next year, they at least get 2 years And that first year, they can sit there and knowing shot, if you at least get 2, you may get 3 or 4. That first year can be, we got a lot of work to do. Even if Bill Belichick comes in here, we got a lot of work to do. And I think what will happen is people will believe that and be patient with that, even if the wins aren't there. But there appears to be more competence and appears to be more upward mobility, as opposed to this team continuing to look like they looked 2 years ago and continuing to come to the press conference and sound just like they did 2 years ago when they don't know what's wrong. The personnel reasons are the ones I wanted to get to. There's 6 players, I believe, and these aren't the only good players on the roster, but there are 6 players that give you the idea of changing your perception of something from the outside. Trevor Lawrence, regardless of what you've seen on tape, regardless of what you think you know or whether you like Trevor Lawrence or not, here's the truth. There are a lot of people that believe Trevor Lawrence is still a super talented guy. And that they can design some things, especially if you get a new GM, because the new GM is probably going to be one thing about a new GM when they take over a team. Just like this is a perfect example. Harbaugh took over that team, and he's not the GM, but he's running stuff. Jim Harbaugh took over the Chargers. Top 5 pick, traded back, ended up with number 6, I believe. Everybody says they need a wide receiver. Nope, took an offensive lineman. Watch the teams like Dave Caldwell did here back in 2013. Took the kid out of Texas A&M, right? The offensive lineman. This is just what they do. They go straight infrastructure a lot of times, especially when you already have a quarterback and you don't have to reach for it. They'll go grab an offensive line so fast it's not even funny because, 1, the Jaguars need that, but 2, they always start with infrastructure. It's like building a neighborhood. You got to dig those roads out first before you start building a house, right? Some people build a house and then they carve the road out. But normally when you go through an empty subdivision, first thing you see is the roads. And that's what this would be. They got to put the pipes in. They got to get the water running and all of that stuff. And that's how they approach it. But here's the thing. Trevor Lawrence is number 1. Brian Thomas Jr. is another. So you got a franchise-type quarterback. Notice I said type. You got what appears to be a franchise number 1 alpha wide receiver on offense. Then you look around on defense. Travon Walker is having a career year. Probably the Jags' best player this season. You've seen what Josh Hines Allen can do, and you trust him because of his football character and how he's always prepared in his approach. So now you got 2 good edge rushers. Then, for that coordinator, say if it's an offensive guy and he wants to attract a really good defensive guy to be his defensive coordinator, you got Foye Oluokun, who is an extension of a coach on the field. He's smart, and I'm going to say Foye Oluokun is A. B is, in my opinion, Ventrell Miller, because now you got a young guy, too, that's not making a whole bunch of money. That is a real good compliment to Foye. And you have Tyson Campbell. Whether you think he's a number 1, he could be a number 2, but at least you have a boundary corner who's athletic and young, and whose best days are probably in front of him. And he can run like the wind. And he's lengthy. So you have the cornerstones of some stuff that you can work with, right? And you got a top 5 pick. The right coach and the right GM together, collectively, I think could turn this thing around, whether it's record-wise in one season or not, whether it's the jump that Washington has. It's all possible because of the division the Jaguars play in that has gotten bad again. We thought it was on the uptick, but now it's bad again. And the Houston Texans, they're kind of limping a little bit. There's an opportunity, I think, for somebody to come in and say, you know what, we can push for a wild card in year 1. And after 2 cycles of free agents, cuts, culture change, and drafts, we can be pushing for a home playoff game by year 2. I think anybody with a brain who wants a job can do that or think that way or reasonably believe that. However, I think something has to happen for you to maximize all of this. And here we go with this word that I used way back in 2020 when I was talking about Trevor Lawrence. I said for you to maximize this, you need to insulate him with a great coaching staff, treat him like a rookie, build the offensive line up, build him a protection, build him a wall, so to speak, right? And protect him. It appeared they did it with the insulating them with the coaches. They had a lot of coaches here with a lot of experience, but they have not done a good job of building that offensive line and selling out to build that offensive line to be what it's supposed to be. Therefore, that's a break in the disconnect, or that's a disconnect or a break in the chain between GM, coach, quarterback, and the team. They haven't taken care of the quarterback. And a lot of people don't realize this, but maybe a big reason for them to move on is if somebody has a talk with Trevor Lawrence. If somebody has a talk with Trevor Lawrence, I'd love to be on a fly on that wall to see if he's honest about the coaching staff and if he has anything to say about player acquisition. You paid him all that money. This is a part of the game that comes along with it. He's no longer a rookie. He's going to be on a veteran deal. He's going to be making top 10, top 15 money in the NFL. Then a lot comes with that responsibility. It's not your responsibility, but I do recommend that you check out Locked On NFL. Make it your second listen. Tyler Rowland gives you a double dose of espresso, a double shot early in the morning. And then for the second show, I will slide you through the barbershop and ease you through the rest of the day in the afternoon on the Locked On NFL, our new Locked On NFL show, where there's 2 shows every single day. You can check it out wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap in. All right, man, we'll see y'all next time here on Locked On NFL. We got crossover tomorrow with Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings. Make sure you tap in.